Uh-oh, I have an echo.
Oh no.
Belinda.
You have an echo. I had as soon as this started. Looks like we're having trouble. We're reconnecting you. It's going to be a great Friday, everybody. Sounds like your echo. No, it's still here. It wasn't there when we started.
Yeah. Whoa, 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 whoa. Bum, 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 bum.
I don't think it's me, is it?
Nope. Just me.
It's you gotta say something really with that echo. It sounds great.
Hello.
Yeah. Announcing your world champions. It's kind of like
World
being at.
champion isotopes.
There you go. Perfect.
Oh, what's causing this? I don't know.
Yeah, muhaha.
Whoa.
There you go.
Was my FX on? Oh,
Yeah, that could be it. That
was that doing it?
because it got more.
Yeah. Oh, it's still
Well,
there. Okay. It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood. Beautiful day in the neighbor. Won't you be mine? Won't you be mine? There we go.
got it.
Holy cow. Good morning, everybody. How the heck's it going?
It's going great with me. I got my travels in yesterday. I got a dark wall behind me, so I got very bad lighting, but I'm here. Can't see my hands, but I'm here. Uh, Made it and everything. Looking forward to this weekend up here. You're going to be here soon. I think there some others on the live stream?
Oh, and you're
Wow, did I freeze or I said all this profound stuff and
yeah,
I just
you had
gave everybody the secret to life and it was cut off.
curing cancer. Here is Kevin
Yeah.
Arnold, and for those of you watch the replay, I'm sure it came through perfectly fine there. Uh, hey Scott, what's going on, buddy? Good to see you.
Nice.
Ah,
Yes, Belinda, I'm in Minnesota. I'm in St. Paul today for the Sequel Saturday this weekend.
yep.
There we go. So if you're
Okay.
in the area, please show up.
Honestly, it's going to be a good event. Kevin speaking. I'll be up there myself. So a whole bunch of different speakers are there, so you can go out and you can register. Tons of different sessions available. I've got two. I go from 1:15 to like 3:30. Oh,
Oh, you're
3:30.
back to back?
Yeah, I'm back to back. So like we got tons of great content. Kevin, where are you? I didn't even
I'm at 9:30.
9:30. Oh, okay.
So I'm lucky. I
Okay.
get to do mine and then go watch everybody else's,
Oh, that
which
is
is I love doing that.
yeah.
Lucky enough to get the first slot.
Oh, that
So
is
yeah,
cool.
I gotta look through all of this type of stuff and plan out my date tomorrow
Yep,
as well.
yep. But there is a after party social event as well. Where is it? Pre-con. Oh, that's today. So like that, this
Oh,
is
I
going
didn't
on
know they had
today.
pre-cons today.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So if you're at all interested, go out and check it out. It is a fantastic. Should be a fun time. Posting that link in the chat for people as well.
Oh, nice.
I may end up having to like limit chats to just people who are posting and on YouTube. This whole LinkedIn has got to get their act together on their integration with stuff. Like if you're not all on LinkedIn, like they don't, their integration is less than great. So, but Kevin's there. I'm heading up now. I understand I'm going to have to fight my way through a marathon now. Is that right, Kevin?
Yeah, so I get in town last night and um, I'm check into the hotel, and there's nobody around. And I make a little joke to the clerk at the front desk and tell her, I says, "Oh, busy night, huh?" She goes, "No, not tonight." I go, like, "Yeah, I can kind of tell." She goes, "But it will be tomorrow." And I asked why. She said, "There's a marathon between the Twin Cities, and it ends maybe 500 yards from this hotel." So then I walk back outside. I could see the big tents set up to where they're going to have the marathon ending. She said there'll be a lot of people staying here, so expect that there'll be a lot of people at the hotel. Um, I think Donald. I think he got a room at this same hotel kind of late. I'm kind of surprised because I hear they're booked. So
Yeah, it was
yeah.
weird. We like planned out what hotel we're gonna be in, and then like I screwed up. I didn't finish the last step, and then Kevin booked. I came to check in, like you did not finish, so I tried to book and they wouldn't let me. But then through my corporate like account, they like had hundreds of rooms. So I don't know how this
Hmm.
stuff works.
Yeah, but
Uh,
yeah, it'll be interesting. So I think there's going to be a lot of action around town, which is good.
mm-hmm.
They're going to be blocking off streets. We might have to walk over to the university tomorrow, and then see how we get around for the other events and everything. But either way, we'll make it good. It'll be
Yeah, I can't
fun.
imagine, like we can't, like we'll be locked down, right? Like it'll be fine. We'll
Yeah,
get through it.
no, no. I talked where I had dinner. I had dinner at the bar, and I asked the guy, and he goes, "Yeah, where you're at, you'll probably be able to get out and get around quite a bit, so should be
Yeah,
fine."
I mean, Corey, this is probably a good point. Like, so my session is until 1:15, so I might as well just register for the marathon tonight. So run that, crank that out first thing in the morning, then hit the sessions, and present in the afternoon. So that'll,
Great idea. I would do it, but 9:30. I'd be pushing it. I might be able to finish it that fast. I'd have to see the start time.
I don't know what that is, but that just looks so funny on my side.
Yeah, it does. Oh
Oh,
my
oh.
goodness. My goodness.
Yeah.
Run in your data god's outfit.
Ah.
Yeah, Sue would be able to do it, Mark. So
Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah. Oh yes, yeah, yeah, yeah. If they allowed the Segway, right? I've got a nice little Segway to,
marathon
to zip
segue.
around.
Speaking of segues, how do we get out of this?
Yeah, yeah, yes, yes, yes. Well, so that's not the only conference that's going on this week. So there are a number of there's a huge conference that's going on in Vegas this week. Um, so the Power Platform Conference, I think, yeah, you could still register. So if like you have at all thought, I got nothing going on this week, what the heck should I do? This is a fantastic conference that you can, check out. I mean, it's in Vegas, right? So like there's always flights in and out of Vegas, and I'm sure there's hotel rooms. So that's
Hmm.
not going to be a problem for anyone. Yeah, it's only $3,300,
Yeah.
for people who think $3,300 is not a big deal, like some companies, hey, go for it, right? If you are going though, there is a social hour on Tuesday at the Losers Bar at the MGM Grand that is hosted by the Fabric team. This should be just like amazing. Uh, do go and check that out. You have to register for that here. I'm posting the link inside the chat. I mean, just name an email address and you'll just get notifications. And I think I'm fairly certain I heard that they're going to be like making sure that people are registered for this in order to attend. So make sure that you go ahead and register for this. Okay. Um, but this is not what we are here for.
So Fernando could save the $3,300 and just fly in, go to the register, and go to the social hour because that doesn't cost, right? So
Right, right. You just hang out with all the cool kids, right? You don't have to be a member there to go and sign up. So that is definitely an option. But I think one of the things that we wanted to talk about, or the subject of today's space, is model performance inside of inside of fabric. And I think that's something that, Kevin, you have either done or worked with some people that have done some deep dives into that.
Yeah.
Microsoft has a nice document on it,
Hmm.
out here, so I just posted the link out on how you can analyze query processing for Direct Lake, and the different steps in that, and we'll get into that in just a second. But Kevin, what has your experience been like when it comes to testing and validating performance inside of Synapse?
Yeah, so kind of as you mentioned, the video that I worked with the other MVPs, we were very concerned about performance, and we wanted to show the performance to Direct Lake and everything. So the main thing is you have to be hitting Direct Lake, right? I mean, if you're not hitting it, then you're not going to get that blazing performance out of it.
Right.
And so the team that did that, mostly Andy Cutler and Shabnam's last name, just Watson, I think is her last name.
Mm-hmm.
Um, uh, they did a lot of testing and shared the results with us. So I was going through the emails early this morning, and that's how we found that link. What I liked about that link when I look back at it is the easiest way to kind of find if you are hitting the direct lake or if it falls back to direct query is using that performance analyzer. And there's a little line on there that shows you direct query when you hit it. So, and Andy was able to prove out that was a little bit slower. We ended up finding that we reduced the number of rows from over a billion to just over half a billion, and we were able to consistently hit the direct link. So
Mm.
Microsoft even talked about that during the preview, right? And I think Amit even kind of came out with it, or Amir, I mean, he talked about they would fall back to direct lake or direct query when needed against those Parquet files and everything. So there seems to be a row count. It may change throughout from preview to GA and everything. So be aware of that. Um, but yeah, I mean, it could be blazing fast by hitting direct lake, but that's kind of your end user experience, right? I think
Mm-hmm.
some of this also goes back to how blazing fast or you do want to move everything through the pipelines and all the different components that you're going to hit, right? Because I think overall you want to combine all of that together. Your end user experience is important, but it's just as important as if they're seeing data really fast and it's stale, then what does it matter, right?
Right. Right. And I think uh, that was a good point that I wanted to really talk about, because we often focus in on the Power BI report, that semantic layer, or the data set layer, and then how
Mm-hmm.
fast that performs. But as we're going to start doing more and more work inside this space, and especially as the semantic layer does more and more when it comes to directly querying back into our environment, the questions are really going to start to focus in on how fast is are we loading or managing our content inside the service,
Mm-hmm.
and at all of these layers, right? And I think there's something to be said at each one. Now, I'm going to preface this with let me flip back over. If you don't know who Mim is out on X, and he posts on. I think he posts on LinkedIn too, but I see him on X all of the
I,
time.
yeah, I see him more on X than I do. You're right. I think some of his when he wraps everything up into a blog post,
Hmm.
then I think he'll come out on Twitter as well. But
Yeah.
he has amazing nuggets that you could read on almost a daily basis. Some of it you got to kind of follow what he's done before in order to kind of piece it all together. But it he is definitely the go-to person when he comes out and says something is performing well. You know it because not only is he testing Fabric, he's testing a lot of platforms.
Yeah.
So,
Well, and I think that is very relevant, because it's not just when we think about this consumption, this is the Microsoft ecosystem consumption, right? But there are all sorts of other tools that will come in and want to access and work with these different components
Mm-hmm.
and you'd want to see what they perform like. Like if I insert Excel into here, how is that going to perform when it comes to going to a semantic layer and going
Hope,
back
hope,
to direct link, right?
hopefully poorly to kind of give another reason for people to move away from it. So.
You don't like Excel? Why don't you like
uh,
Excel?
uh, it's a love-hate relationship, right? I mean, yes,
Yeah,
it's extremely fast, to kind of just pull data in, but then you're isolating where you're whoever's pulling into Excel that just wants access to the data, they're reshaping it when they get there. Instead of telling you how it should be reshaped for everybody, they're doing it for themselves, right? And then that becomes, just their little quotes up here, their little knowledge base, right? And I get it. Everybody's got to have an advantage in the workplace, right? But then I've seen people build it with Excel that it makes it that they're irreplaceable, right? Up until they have to be replaced, and then you're struggling to find out what the hell were you doing, or what the
what
heck
does
were you
this
doing?
even mean? Oh,
Yeah.
that okay. That's a fair fair comment. I think I don't know. Should score? Yeah, I guess scorecards go
Scorecards would be in that space, yeah.
in there. Yeah. I think of scorecards as downstream from your reports because it actually
Connect,
feeds.
yeah.
Yeah, like it's like another layer, right? But yeah, I think we have our. I think it's fine to say that we have our consume.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense to call this the consume layer?
Yes.
I think this is the semantic layer, right? And we this is the data set. So for those of you guys who
Used
don't
to be
know,
data set. Well, no, it still is.
yeah, this is the Power BI data set. So we talk about tabular models, all that good stuff. We are about to see this get renamed into the uh, semantic
That
model.
big model, yes.
Yeah, yeah. So really excited about that because I think that is what truly captures what we're talking about here. And I look at this as like our data layer. Is that a good?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. But then we also have our sources systems, right? Now,
Right.
let's go. We classically talk. We started this conversation going uh, about report to the semantic layer, and we'll go into that in some more detail, presumably good time. But let's talk about what does it mean to have a poorly performing source system when it comes to consuming data. Kevin, what's been your experience and the challenge when it comes to loading data from systems that maybe are undersized or are not as performant as you'd like them to be?
Yeah, well, and when you asked that question, immediately in my brain, I had to turn it just a little bit
Mm-hmm.
because there's the definition of how that source system, let's assume it's some type of OLTP, online transactional processing system,
Mm-hmm.
right? Whether it performs poorly on its own for how it's serving, seeing your its own customers is not part of your question. It's really if it's poor performing for you to pull that data out of there,
Yep.
right? So we have to think about it from that standpoint. And a lot of those systems are going to be, even if it's well performing for their end customers, they're going to be set up to handle that type of OLTP performance. So you can run into a lot of struggles trying to get that data out of it. So the best thing that you could do is try to pull it out as an amount of small changes as much as possible. Now, that's going to vary depending on the data source that you have, right? So
Mm-hmm.
if you have some type of database that is a relational database, SQL, Oracle, or whatever that has the concept, uh, SQL calls it change data capture, right? Oracle
Mm-hmm.
has a change data capture part. It's implemented a little bit differently. But if you could get that, right, so that you could find a way to get that smaller and you're getting things without even reading the tables, you're going to tremendously speed up your performance to pull that data.
Yep.
Next in those relational systems is if you have um, dates that help you understand when something was created or modified or whatever. The challenge with that is typically now you're scanning that entire table over in that source system unless that DBA is going to be able to index those columns for you, which again, they may be hesitant to do if it impacts the actual system. So you have to
Right.
keep looking at these techniques of how to do that. You put APIs up there as well. That's another one. A lot of APIs support date ranges, right? To say,
Mm-hmm.
how do you want to get data from this date range? So now in your data engineering platform, you're coding a lot more logic to think about when was the last time that I got data from there? What can I get? In some cases, I didn't always trust the marker, the date that was recorded. So I would back up maybe even another hour or two from that and
Sure.
then get overlapping data and then handle that once I got it to my platform. But the key is you want to handle that in your platform, not the source platform, because you don't want to depend on the source's computing power for that, right?
Right.
Build up your own compute power. So that's a lot of what I've kind of seen in there is you really have to think about what the source is, how what techniques that source allows for you, and how you could make it into incremental batches.
Well, I think another great source, and one of the things I like most about Fabric and OneDrive, I'm sorry, not OneDrive, OneLake. Sorry. uh,
OneDrive is a valid source as well,
sure, sure, sure.
especially if you call OneDrive being SharePoint, Teams, or whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
for user provided manual, right now we're back to Excel. Usually Excel type data that comes in is going to come from your OneDrive, your SharePoint, Teams. That's all kind of the same ecosystem. But go ahead, let's talk about OneLake, what you could do there, even with right
Well,
moving data
I
and stuff.
like it because now you don't necessarily have to do anything in OneLake. In fact, I don't want to do the drawing. I want to do this, right? So if I think about OneLake, or if I think about, OneLake, what am I going to do with this data? Well, I'm not even going to copy it. I'm just going
Mm-hmm.
to make it appear inside of my lake house using that linking. And now
Mm-hmm.
I don't have to manage, I don't have to use pipelines. I don't have to write notebooks. I don't have to do any data flow work. I can just use the data that's in one lake, and
Mm-hmm.
I can just use that in my lake house for utilization and everything downstream. So that like eliminates a lot of the heavy lifting that a lot of teams have, especially if you're talking about a team that maybe you're not the enterprise on the enterprise data warehouse team. Maybe you're just doing some analytics and you need to pull stuff
Mm-hmm.
from that enterprise space in order for you to create some content. One Lake makes it easy for that enterprise team to own all of these resources, own these capabilities, and then
Mm-hmm.
you just get to use them without any of the like, oh, let me make sure that we loaded from the data warehouse today. Those types of behaviors, right?
So you're saying that the fastest data movement is no movement at all.
That that is that's exactly right, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So the concept of using shortcuts
Mm-hmm.
or calling back to that video that I did with the other MVPs, you could even get the file path, right? There's a file path in the properties when you go up into Fabric. And
Mm-hmm.
if you're, like you said, you're doing data science and you're loading that in to do your work, you could do it from that file path rather than shortcuts or whatever. So
Yeah.
there's
Uh,
multiple ways to do that.
I mean, now this is fantastic. Oh, can't zoom in, but I'm in one lake right here. I can browse to it. I can find my lake house and I can
Mm-hmm.
explore the content. I can understand what's in there, and I don't have to download any of this. Like, look, it's still out in the cloud.
Right.
I just have that link over to it, and it's just available. So that to me is a huge advantage because now we could bring this in and we could put views on top of it. We could create store
Mm-hmm.
procedures on top of it, and then we own this layer, and we could say like, okay, I'm going to do the following things to manage my data estates, right? I'm going to set up my Spark jobs to refresh any pipelines that I have, but know that I'm always going to have the most recent information that's available inside of my OneLake is just
Mhm.
fantastic, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I think the shortcuts and that, the idea of having just one copy of everything is, I think it's going to take a while for a lot of people to kind of get used to it and
Mm-hmm.
understand how to best utilize it. But yeah, especially when, like you said, when you get into downstream, um, consuming of that, because something is still going to have to bring it into one leg, right?
Right.
So, like you said, you're going to have a set of maybe highly trained data engineers that know how to bring it in quickly. A lot of the points that I was trying to mention,
Mm-hmm.
um, and get it stored. But once that's done, everybody else kind of consuming it, not having to do that again. Um, I think there's going to be some governance, some what's the right word? The word control comes into mind,
Mm-hmm.
right? There's gonna have to be something within your organization to help ensure that people just are not bringing in the same data set, the same data multiple times, right?
Right.
Because so many times at groups they get, or in organizations they get segmented, or somebody happened to get access to it and they bring it in as well. Um, I
So I'm
haven't
going to
seen
toss
how.
this one out here.
Yeah.
I just something just dawned on me. Kevin, and for those of you who are on the live stream, uh, at one point in time in my career, like if I think back 25 years ago, uh, I don't know, half or more of all office staff at 10 a.m. and at 3 p.m. would go outside for 15 to 30 minutes and have a cigarette, right? Today, I don't know anyone that goes out and has a cigarette, um, like at all, right? Like it's definitively not the entire the bulk of the office going outside for a 15 to 30-minute break. Um,
Hmm.
I have a feeling that uh, we are going to see over the course of the next 5, 10 years a similar shift from people who load information in from all these different sources, where it's a good chunk of the people that do that, to a good chunk of the people that like. In fact, everyone's starting to use the linking nature that's available in one. Like, does that does that jive? Does that make sense to you, sir?
Boy, that's I think a pretty bold statement.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I think your point is valid, right? We're going to see over the next 5 years or so how people's work habits change,
Yep.
right? And work habits, especially around data today. Um, and hopefully it's just going to get a whole lot better. It always seems like the biggest challenge has been getting the right access to the right data for people, right? So the being able to do the linking, being able to have the one place for it, all of these concepts, and just having it brought into that one platform, i.e., the one lake. Yeah, I think it can change how people work, and
Mm-hmm.
how everything is going to go. I'm trying to read the comments to see if there's anything that's popping up.
I just got something about Romanians. I don't know exactly what this is in reference
Yeah.
to. So I just know that like I think about the Roman Empire every 2 to 3 days. I don't know about you, but it's something about
So
roads.
if anybody doesn't know what he's talking about, reach out separately because my son explained this to me the other day.
Okay.
And then now I started seeing those things on X and everywhere else about asking, do you think about the Roman Empire? My God, I did not think that would come up here. That's hysterical.
All right. So I'm gonna gonna say the other thing as I'm thinking about speed and performance, we have, like we talked about, we've got the one lake that we can just map directly into Lakehouse. All well and good. This is awesome. What about our warehouse people? Or what about our friends who want to use a data mart, right? Um, Honestly, I think there's some use cases where a data warehouse makes more sense and where a data mart makes sense. And if you're
Hmm.
not familiar with why you would might want one or the other, I'm just going to quickly summarize this as think of this as SQL and think of this as MPP. Um, which means this
Hmm.
is a SQL database. So, like referential integrity, all that stuff can be defined inside of a SQL database. MPP is for performance, but you lose that referential integrity. And so this is like scale and performance. This is for smaller and more consolidated use cases, right? Um,
Does the data mart enforce referential integrity if you define it?
Presently, you can't define keys, and you can't define
Okay.
those inside of a data mart, but in theory you could, because it
Okay.
is behind the covers. This is SQL Server, right?
Yeah, I agree. That's more the traditional SQL Server that most people think about. If you just download the dev version of SQL Server,
Mm-hmm.
which, by the way, did you see that there's a free, you can set up a free SQL database for dev purposes. This was announced on there was a conference, there was an online conference that happened, I think, on Wednesday, and Bob Ward announced that. Let me see if
Oh,
I can find. I'll find that again, and I'll bring this back up here in just a little bit.
okay.
But yeah, so Data Mart itself, I would agree with you. It's closer to the SQL Server that we think of that is not MPP, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is it massive or parallel processing?
Massive parallel processing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
to
So,
where MPP is going to run across clusters, so it distributes the work. I was trying to write some code over the weekend for something, and I started getting some errors against the warehouse to where I couldn't get it to work across the distributed nodes.
mm,
Because
interesting.
yeah, and that's been known like in the evolution of the data warehouse, right?
Mm-hmm.
The theories all come from what was called parallel data warehouse years ago,
Mm-hmm.
moved into Azure Synapse as the dedicated pool.
Mm-hmm.
That was your MPP, and now this is based upon that. But from my understanding, it's not the exact code base that was put in to that, but I think it's pretty close. I think it starts with it. So
Well, I do know that the semantic or Synapse warehouse that's inside Fabric has been completely rewritten. But in theory, it should work uh, in many of the same ways. I don't know of any of the MPP limitations that have been eliminated. Right. Um, uh, uh, and so, oh, actually, this is a good question coming in from Ali from over on LinkedIn. For the medallion architecture, which component for which layer? Bronze, lakehouse, silver, lakehouse, gold, warehouse, for example? And actually, that is a great question. While you can put, and actually it leads into my next potential observation, while you could potentially put your bronze, your silver, and your gold inside of lakehouse, you
mhm.
100% can do that. Maybe we do the bronze and silver inside the lake house, and then uh, choose to leverage either our warehouse or strategically choose to use our data mart for that that gold layer. Now, if you do this, you lose out on direct lake because direct
Right.
lake is only uh, if the gold layer is defined in the lake house. So we're going to say
Yeah.
you predominantly you'll want to use your gold layer inside a lake house. But there is some use cases, especially if you're using or if you have lots of control mechanisms or store procedures that update data or do different things to it to move potentially even the silver and gold layers into your warehouse or your data mart.
Yeah. Well, and to add on to that, so I think I mentioned I've been working for, I have a very small client. We have maybe tens of thousands of rows that we're bringing in.
Mm-hmm.
Probably not even going past 30,000 right now. And I'm doing exactly what you talked about. Is my bronze and silver goes into the lake house,
Mm-hmm.
and then I use the warehouse for my gold.
Yep.
Now, the other reason that I'm doing this is because it is so small, I don't even care about direct lake at this point.
Yep.
So my semantic model slash data set is still import.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, and then I do that import from the SQL, the data warehouse, the warehouse component of it.
So
Um,
a question for you, Kevin.
mhm,
Just because like there's the whole depends thing, right?
correct.
You said it's tens of thousands of records. How big is the data set in megabytes or gigabytes, and how long does it take to load?
It takes less than a minute to load from
Mm-hmm.
into the data set.
Mm-hmm.
And it's still in the megabytes when it finalizes and everything. It's still very small. I
Right.
haven't tried to, yeah. So again, it is very small, but I did like this approach. House, what I wrote was a lot of views that connect it back to the lake house. Now I did have to have my lake house and warehouse in the same workspace to make that easy for me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but being able to write those views, I had a couple things where I had to do some more logic. I did write some stored procedures in that. Um, but yeah, I think, yeah, less than a gig, less than a minute. Yeah, you're gonna, why not stick with import mode? The other thing is what I could do is then put that import data set
Mm-hmm.
onto a pro workspace. And
Mm-hmm.
then just everybody that they have pro licenses for only gets licensed or only connects into that final workspace, right? And
Mm-hmm.
one of the things we've talked about is we're using an F2 capacity, but still even to bring costs down even more, is
Mm-hmm.
we could probably only have that up for a couple hours a day. And it's running in less than an hour, the complete end-to-end cycle, right? I think it's 20 minutes or something like that, but I'd probably have it up for an hour just as a safeguard in case something goes wrong. But think of the money you could save on doing all of that.
Holy cow!
If
I mean,
you
you're
know,
talking. I mean, an F2 is less than $200 a month.
yeah,
You're talking about running it 1/24th of an hour or 1/24th
one
of
fourth,
the time.
yep,
So, holy cow, you're talking about like $6 a month, maybe seven.
yeah,
Um, oh, wow. I mean, that's less than a pro license to have
right.
an enterprise grade solution. Like, tell me Fabric is not the ideal solution for SMB customers, right? Like, that's awesome.
I am all in on it on an SMB customer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, especially with what I've proven out with this customer, right? And they've been, I'm glad that they were willing to take the risk with me and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been working out well. I think it's going to turn out to be a good case study and how things worked out. But yeah, you're right. You could get off, you know, very inexpensive in doing this. It is just amazing.
Yeah, that's impressive. And honestly, I think we're starting to see some enterprise customers that are realizing the value of that too, right? And it's huge all the stuff that you can do inside of here.
Yep. Hey, so before I forget, if we could wrap
Mm-hmm.
up, let me
Yeah.
share my screen, and then so
Okay.
it's shared. Entire screen is going to be this one, but wait just a second before you show it,
Okay.
and then let me put. You
Not a problem.
see the free offer.
Yep.
So if you want to show that to our audience, this is the screenshot I captured while Bob was giving his keynote at that presentation.
Mm.
There is an Azure SQL database free offer. And here's kind of the limit, the sizing that you get. Um, is 100,000 vCore seconds per month, 32 gig of storage and backup. It's going to be serverless. There's no time limit. It's good for the lifetime of your subscription, but there's only one database per subscription. And if you want to take advantage of it, you see that aka.ms freedb link below. And where I would think about using this is I'm going to try that, I guess, when I get back home. I'm going to try that in my free dev tenant, right? I think we've heard us talk about having a free dev tenant and everything before, but now I'll be able to, in my free dev tenant, I should be able to set up a free SQL database and be able to test things there for, say, direct query or, what I want to bring in from that and everything. So take advantage of this if you haven't heard about it yet. I've seen others started posting on it on LinkedIn and everything. So it's all there.
Well, that's fantastic. Let me http :// aka.ms free db free db free db
free the DB. Free the data. The data wants to be free.
Oh, is it one per subscription or one per tenant?
It says one per subscription. So
Okay.
I'm assuming if you do have multiple subscriptions, which probably most people, aren't, if they do, they may or may not be aware of it, right? It tends to be the bigger corporations that start going to multiple subscriptions for different reasons. But it does say subscription rather than tenant. So
okay, that's good.
yeah,
I mean, heck, maybe you sign up a subscription for that. Although I think isn't there a cost per subscription? There was at one point. Maybe there's not anymore.
I do know to go over so many subscriptions, you have to up your you have to up a couple things, right?
Okay.
But I don't know to break it out per subscription. There's other people that understand this better than me that get into it. And I've worked with a couple clients where they we're doing an Azure Synapse solution, and they liked having a subscription per environment. So dev, test, and prod were all in their own Azure subscription, rather than just being in resource groups, which I thought was interesting. But
look at that, so easy.
Yeah. Do you have my
wait,
screen?
this has a cost. This is where it took me.
Okay, are you done showing mine? Okay.
Yeah, I'm done showing yours. So you can go back to the stream.
Yeah, I didn't want to have everything kind of get mirrored by me showing my
right.
what we're using.
Development. Oh my gosh, look at that. Change it to development. It goes to $5.74 a month. I mean, at that price, that's less than a Netflix subscription, right?
Yeah.
Actually,
but there should be a way that it should be totally free as well.
Yeah. Well, maybe it's not out yet. I don't know.
He said it was available that day on Wednesday because Bob was one of the first ones to announce it at that conference, is what he was saying. So we'll see if we can figure out between now and next week exactly how you get there, so you get the free part of it.
I changed it to Elastic Pool, and it
you're gonna probably, if you make a lot of those type of changes, you might get cost on it or something.
Oh, okay. Well, the cost went away when I changed it to Elastic Pool. No, I don't.
Okay.
Right? Like if I said no, cost, yes. There's not. I don't know. I don't know if that's the what would cause that. Yeah, I can't. Yeah, I don't know. Okay. All right. So we started talking about this with this method about like analyzing query processing. So let's, we talked about sources. We talked about data. Let's come back to what we started. We're gonna Quentin Tarantino this live stream. Let's go back to the beginning of the topics that we were getting into, which was our data set performance and what we started with, right? So, frankly, I am a huge fan of how this now works. Although I was surprised that this is going to go down the path that it goes because, and we'll get into why. So using the performance analyzer inside of Power BI desktop, you can actually like start to record and see what the performance is like.
Mm-hmm.
Come on, zoom in. Oh. Okay. Well, you can actually see the performance inside of your reports, and you can really look for things that are. I mean, like now this is doing a good job because it's this is a performing visual, right? Like, look, the card takes less than a second to render, whereas this card takes almost 10 seconds to render, right?
Right.
That's no good.
And do you notice that that one has a direct query line on it,
Mm-hmm.
where the one above does not?
Yes.
That's what they're trying to point out there, I believe.
Yep.
Right? Is
Yep.
this one is what, whatever was happening behind the scenes, however maybe how you stored your data, if it was in a warehouse or if it was in this or that, but it made a decision to use direct query rather than not using it. So that's
Yeah. Yeah. And so, okay, hey, good to know. But then this is where it takes a little bit of a twist is this article recommends using SQL Profiler. And here is a great reason to bookmark this link. And I'm posting this out on our chat so you guys can have it again in case you missed it earlier. Is SQL Profiler has always been a mechanism that allowed you to like monitor query performance and understand what's going
Mhm.
on in your server, and you could do that with analysis services, and you could do that with Power BI data sets. But for me, I've always had questions around like what activities you had to trace when you're monitoring that, because if you've ever done this before, there is a boatload of options, right? So
Ton of events.
yeah. There's just so many events. You don't need to look at all of them because it's not telling you stuff, right? So,
Mhm.
a note: you're going to download and install the SQL Profiler. Again, a free tool. Connect, connect to the service. Um, and specifically connect to the database. That's interesting. Oh yeah, I guess I knew you had to do that.
Yeah, it's going to have to know which database, right?
Yep.
Because if it just takes a default one, yeah, you're going to have to get that set up. My
Yeah.
camera decided to start flashing its lights.
Well, that's fun.
Yeah.
Strobe light effect going on. But then it goes in here and it mentions that like, hey, you want to show all events, and really you don't need everything on here. These are the events that you need, okay? And this right here is worth its weight in gold, right? You want to know when the direct queries begin, when the direct queries end, and you want to know, because this is your query executing, and then this is another big one for troubleshooting these, is you want to know when your vertipack queries begin, when the cache matches, when the cache misses, and when that ends, okay? These are two components that are going to be very important for you to look at, for you to find where you're having performance issues or where something isn't mapped quite right inside your model, okay? It's going to end up looking like this. That's not the right screenshot. That's literally,
That the same as what was there? What was above?
yeah. All right. Well, this is a preview document. Clearly, they need to
It
update
sounds like
that.
we have some feedback to send in.
Yeah. So apologies for whoever wrote this document on the live stream that we're going through this. But when this or once you get that up and running, you can start to interact with your model and you can start to see these opportunities start to flow in. Okay. So then you could find out what queries are hitting your vertipack and your cache and which ones are going back to the compute. Okay. Or back to direct query. Now, with that said, I have always looked at using DAX Studio. That's where
Mhm.
I was a little shocked on this. I've always used DAX Studio for the vast majority of my performance and troubleshooting. And in fact, I think one of the better videos, if not one of the better videos out there uh,
Hmm.
on this topic, is this video from SQL BI, import versus direct query in Power BI. They've got a whole number of videos that will like run you through how you can troubleshoot this, how you can get this up and running and working. So do check this out. They really do an excellent job. And for those of you who aren't aware, DAX Studio is a free tool that you can download and you can add into your service. Um,
Hmm.
if you work in a company that does a software evaluation for like, can you use tools, right? If you need to have this done, uh, clip this segment of the live stream and send this over to uh, your your review board, your architecture review board. Okay. uh, so that hopefully I can stop answering this question and you could just reference this clip. um, your Power BI developers need to use DAX Studio in order to properly do evaluations of the models and how they
Hmm.
work and operate. DAX Studio, Tabular Editor 2 and 3 are mandatory tools that have been reviewed and approved by insurance companies, healthcare companies, banks, financial institutions. They're under, they don't collect any information, they don't collect any data. These tools are 100%, safe for you to have inside your organization, and they are endorsed and approved by Microsoft because Microsoft has approved them. Amir Netz, the CTO for Microsoft,
Hmm.
has written a blog endorsing these tools and these capabilities. You are 100% okay to have these in your organization. All right.
Yep.
Kevin, do you want to add on to that?
No, you summed it up exactly right. There's the post from Microsoft endorsing them. They've been scanned and looked at by many organizations, right? The team that writes them are fabulous developers, and they're very aware that they want to pass those scans, so they do everything that they can. And if something does come up later on, they fix it very quickly and put it back out there and everything. So yeah, I'm with you. Is I could not live without these tools.
Yeah.
100%.
Yep. 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 Hang on a second here. I thought I had a playlist someplace. There's another one on Guy in the Cube. Patrick has a did a series on getting for composite models and testing out if you're hitting the or aggregations and the aggregates, and if you're hitting the direct query or not. They are fantastic in helping you troubleshoot this. They're exactly what you should do. I can't. I'm not pulling it up as fast as I would like to for the live stream, but que sera, sera.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
kind of how we roll here, right? We ad lib a lot of things, and then we kind of find stuff as we can.
Yep. 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 All right, and then
But
one quick last thing I want to hit on before we cut it out, because we are running near the end of time, and
mhm.
frankly, I got to get on the road so I can get there in time for this shindig to kick off today, and that is scorecard performance. Kevin, have you done much on scorecard performance?
No, I'm bowing out on this part. I have not, the performance, I've only set up the scorecards a few times going right up against the Power BI reports,
Mm,
right? So
mm-hmm.
obviously, to me, they feel like they're dependent on how fast the report is. But, they're only checking it, once the underlying data set changes for that report and then recording their progress at that point. So plus you have to rest up for the marathon. It's going to be a marathon for him to get here. That's his
Yeah,
marathon today.
yeah, yeah,
He's running it today in this car.
yeah. um,
But what have you seen for performance on scorecards? I haven't thought about it as that much.
So I actually say the only performance issue that I end up actually dealing with and continue to deal with multiple times over the last year is this. Actually, it's more on the success or failure of the refresh of the elements that are linked inside of the
Mm.
scorecard. I don't know exactly why or how this functions or works, because I guess I haven't run a SQL profiler against a scorecard data set while doing the loads. But sometimes these things come and load and as you'd expect, and other times not so. So I'll call out uh, if you're doing loads inside of your scorecards, make sure you're refreshing more often than you'd think. It is a thing. And then I guess we skipped over paginated reports. Kevin, any
Mm.
words of performance on paginated reporting?
So if you're doing paginated report and you have to go against the semantic layer,
Mm-hmm.
learn to write DAX queries
Yep.
because if you set up your data set correctly to respond for Power BI reports, your semantic model may not. Belinda's comic cracked me up.
Yeah.
Your semantic model may not perform well for your paginated report.
Yep.
That being said, if you can bypass that semantic layer and go to the backend SQL, or now in this case, looking at Fabric, say you're going right back to the warehouse or potentially the lake house, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whenever I do paginated reports that go against a backend SQL database, I like to put the stored procedures in the SQL database, take it all out of the paginated report itself. So I would end up saying, going back against the warehouse would be the best architecture within Fabric for paginated reports.
Yeah, and I'm actually going to agree with you. And I think that's one of the big advantages you want with a paginated report is you can run that against any of these backend systems
Mm-hmm.
and allow you to do things that your model may not have in it or might be incredibly difficult
Mm-hmm.
inside of a data model because now you can write just good old fashioned SQL to
Right.
generate your paginated reports. So, for example, let's say you needed to create a cohort analysis in which you use subqueries to generate cohorts of salespeople or whatever it is. And,
Mm-hmm.
salespeople could be in many cohorts. And, you're going to do some complex time based measures and like defined review patterns. That's much easier to do inside of a SQL query than it is to do inside of a data set. So paginated
Yeah.
reports gives you that ability to have that more granular, complex logic and go back to the source systems.
Mm-hmm.
It's also great for your operational reports for like what happened with transactions, like real deep
Right.
transactional details. You're not doing analysis on, you're doing detailed reporting on. Paginated
Yeah.
reports allows for that,
Yeah.
right?
Definitely. Yeah. And it's not that again, I have, because I had to combine all this other data that I couldn't get into one platform before. I
Mm-hmm.
combined it into a data set. But I mean, I spent a lot of time writing DAX queries, right? Not measures,
Mm-hmm.
but intense DAX queries where I kept standing up, virtualized tables and then uniting those together or accept or whatever. And I got it to work. I got it to perform well, but it was not an easy task. So
Yep.
um, definitely.
All right. Well, we are nearing the end of our time. We're going to be in Minnesota, like we said.
Hmm.
Next week, next week, some things that are on the docket for awareness. Uh, uh, we're we're finishing the data vault
Okay,
presentation
good.
next week. This is going to be really, really fascinating. I saw another demo of the code. It's got some really cool capabilities. This is like what is the model for how you manage your data at the silver layer. I'm super excited about this conversation and showing people how this works and what you can do in this. And we'll also, fingers crossed, we might even be showing Streamlit, which is a new
Hmm.
capability inside of Snowflake that allows you to uh, directly display information from within Snowflake and
Hmm.
push back edits and changes on it. So,
Oh, wow.
yeah, that's super cool. We're meeting next week. What is ours on next week? We're going to be talking about One Lake. We'll be doing more on that
Okay.
in our session, and then the week after that, we got Marco Russo.
Oh
So
wow.
yeah, very excited about that for that lunch and learn. So we will see you guys then. But uh, uh, otherwise, you guys have a great day. Kevin, any parting words?
No, I'm looking forward to seeing you in person in a few hours. So I think it's going to be great. Anybody else, please come up, say hi during the session. But
Yep.
drive safe.
Arnold, we'll see you there.
We'll
All
see you
right.
there.
Take care, everybody. Peace.
Peace.
Baker Tilly Digital combines strategic industry insight and advanced technical expertise to uncover and solve your digital transformation challenges. If you're interested in learning more, check out our website at bakertilly.com/digital.